The silk of my wedding dress didn't feel like a fairy tale. It felt like a shroud, clinging tightly to curves that 100 cruel eyes were currently dismantling. Standing at the altar of the grandest cathedral in the city, the silence didn't break with a holy blessing. It broke with a low, venomous chuckle from the man holding my hands. Hugo, the billionaire heir I thought loved me, leaned in close, his microphone catching every single word as he whispered to the entire congregation, "Look at yourself, Selena. You're too heavy to be loved. Did you really think a masterpiece like me would ever marry a mistake like you?" The pews erupted. The elite of the city, people who had smiled to my face for months, didn't look away. They laughed openly, pointing at the plus-size bride frozen under the stained glass windows. My mother-in-law, Victoria Vance, sneered from the front row, adjusting her flawless diamonds, completely satisfied with the public execution of my dignity. My eyes blurred with hot, stinging tears, the weight of their mockery crushing the last remnants of my spirit. I turned to flee, to let the shadows of the church swallow my shame. Then, the massive, oak double doors of the cathedral didn't just open. They slammed against the stone walls with a force that rattled the stained glass. The laughter died instantly, choked out by a sudden, suffocating wave of pure terror. Heavy, deliberate footsteps echoed through the silence. A man stepped through the blinding threshold, his tall, broad-shouldered frame draped in a flawlessly tailored black suit that cost more than the entire wedding budget. It was Giovanni Moretti, the ghost of the city. A man whose name was only whispered in dark corners, whose family held the strings of every politician, judge, and billionaire in the state. He didn't look at the armed guards who froze in place, nor did he look at the terrified guests scrambling backward into their pews. His dark, lethal eyes were locked entirely on me, and as he walked past my trembling groom, he spoke just 5 words into the silence. Words that didn't just stop the wedding, but promised to burn Hugo's entire world to the ground. "She is my queen now." The words cut through the heavy air of the cathedral, like a physical blade. The microphone in Hugo's hand trembled, emitting a sharp, high-pitched whine that made the front-row guests wince. But no one dared to cover their ears. No one dared to breathe. Hugo's face flushed a deep, violent crimson, his standard mask of upper-class arrogance fracturing in real time. He swallowed hard, his voice shaking despite his best efforts to maintain control. "Moretti, this is a private family matter. You have no business here. This girl is nothing but a—" "Choose your next words with extreme care, Hugo," Giovanni interrupted, his tone chillingly conversational. He didn't raise his voice, yet it carried an absolute weight that anchored everyone to their seats. "Because the moment they leave your mouth, I will decide whether your family name survives the sunset." Giovanni stepped up onto the altar, completely ignoring Hugo, and walked directly toward me. I shrunk back slightly, my hands gripping the lace of my gown, my heart hammering against my ribs. I knew who he was. Everyone knew who he was. The shadow ruler of the city's underbelly, a man whose family possessed absolute, terrifying sovereignty. But as he came to a stop just inches from me, the lethal aura vanished, replaced by an intense, unwavering focus that made the rest of the room disappear. Slowly, deliberately, Giovanni reached into his breast pocket and pulled out a pristine, black silk handkerchief. He didn't look at the cameras still live-streaming the event to thousands of high society screens across the country. He reached up, his large, scarred hand remarkably gentle as he brushed his thumb against my cheek, wiping away the dark, ruined trails of mascara. "Don't lower your head, Selena," he murmured, his dark eyes fierce. "A crown doesn't fit a tilted head. Let them look at you. Let them look at the woman who just became untouchable." "What are you doing?" Victoria Vance finally found her voice, stepping out of the front pew, her perfect posture rigid with fury. "This girl is a nobody. Her father died penniless, a failed businessman. We took her in out of charity, and my son was simply showing the world what happens when dirt tries to climb into high society. You cannot interfere in this." Giovanni didn't turn to face her immediately. He finished folding his handkerchief, placed it back into his pocket, and only then did he turn his head, casting a cold, sidelong glance at the matriarch of the Vance Empire. "Charity." Giovanni let out a soft, humorless laugh that sent a visible shiver through the guests nearest to him. "Is that the lie you told your son, Victoria? Or is that the lie you told the press to cover up the fact that your late husband built the entire foundation of the Vance fortune by stealing the maritime trade licenses from Selena's father while he lay dying in a hospital bed? A collective gasp rippled through the pews. The media cameras, originally positioned to capture my ultimate humiliation, pivotally swung toward the altar, catching every second of the unfolding disaster. Hugo's eyes widened in genuine panic. That's a lie. You can't prove that. Her father was incompetent. Your father kept 2 sets of ledger books, Hugo. One for the tax authorities, and one hidden in the floorboards of your private estate in Monaco, Giovanni said, taking a slow step toward him. Did you really think my people wouldn't find them? Your father thought he was clever. He thought he could ruin a good man and leave his daughter vulnerable, hiding behind legal loopholes and corporate shell companies. Giovanni paused, standing directly under the massive stained glass image of a judging angel. Selena's father saved my life when I was a boy. He gave my family shelter when our enemies burned our compound. I spent 5 years searching for his daughter to repay that blood debt. And today, you brought her right to me. The realization hit Hugo like a physical blow. The trap he had spent months designing, courting me, pretending to love my mind and my heart, only to orchestrate this grand, televised public execution of my self-worth, had just backfired completely. He hadn't broken a defenseless woman. He had inadvertently summoned a monster to his doorstep. "Guards!" Victoria screamed, pointing a diamond-encrusted finger at Giovanni. "Get him out of here! Now! This is our property." 4 heavily armed security personnel in tactical gear stepped into the aisle, their hands moving toward their holsters. But before they could even draw their weapons, a series of rhythmic, heavy clicks echoed from the upper balconies of the cathedral. Looking up, the guests frozen. A dozen men dressed in matching, unmarked black tactical suits stood along the stone balustrades, their rifles aimed directly down at the Vance security team. The authority in the room shifted instantly. The 4 guards slowly raised their hands and took 3 deliberate steps backward into the shadows, completely abandoning their employers. "Now then," Giovanni said, turning his back on the guards as if they were nothing more than a minor annoyance. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a sleek, obsidian smartphone. "Let us talk about what it actually means to be heavy, Hugo. Because right now, the weight of your entire life is about to crush you." Giovanni tapped the screen once. Within 3 seconds, a chorus of sharp, high-pitched digital alerts began chiming simultaneously throughout the church. It started with Victoria's phone, followed immediately by Hugo's, and then, one by one, the phones of every wealthy investor and board member sitting in the congregation began to buzz violently. Hugo pulled his phone from his tuxedo pocket, his eyes scanning the screen. The color completely drained from his skin, leaving him a sickly, ghostly pale. No, this is impossible. The trading freeze doesn't lift until Monday. "I don't play by the market hours, Hugo," Giovanni said smoothly. "While you were busy rehearsing your little speech about Selena's weight, my firms launched a synchronized, predatory short squeeze on Vance Global Holdings. By my calculations, your family stock has plummeted 87% in the last 4 minutes. The bank has already initiated the foreclosure on your Monaco estate. Your private jets are grounded by federal order, and the board of directors is currently voting to strip you and your mother of every single asset to cover the margins." "You ruined us," Victoria whispered, her knees visibly buckling as she clutched the wooden pew for support. "In 4 minutes, everything we built. You built it on a foundation of stolen blood and broken promises," Giovanni replied, his voice devoid of any human warmth. "You wanted a show today, Victoria. I simply ensured the audience got what they paid for." Unhinged by the sudden, absolute evaporation of his entire existence, Hugo looked down at the altar, his eyes locked onto a massive, heavy silver candelabra resting near the Bible. With a guttural roar of pure, desperate madness, he snatched the metal piece, swinging it wildly toward Giovanni's head. "I'll kill you! I'll kill both of you!" I screamed, stepping forward, but Giovanni didn't even move his feet. With blinding speed and terrifying precision, Giovanni raised his left arm, catching the heavy silver bar cleanly in his palm. The impact echoed through the church, but Giovanni's arm didn't move an inch. Before Hugo could pull back, Giovanni twisted his wrist. A sharp, sickening crack echoed through the sound system, as Hugo's wrist shattered under the immense pressure. Hugo dropped to his knees, clutching his broken arm to his chest, screaming in agony as the silver candelabra clattered against the stone floor. He lay there, weeping, his expensive tuxedo stained with his own sweat and the dust of the altar floor. Giovanni looked down at him, his expression one of absolute disgust. A man who uses his words to attack a woman's soul and his hands to attack her life is not a masterpiece, Hugo. You are lower than the dirt beneath her bridal train. Victoria threw herself forward, falling to her knees right beside her sobbing son, her expensive hair falling loose as she looked up at Giovanni with wild, pleading eyes. Please, please, stop. Leave us enough to live. We'll give her whatever she wants. We'll apologize publicly. Just don't take everything. Giovanni didn't answer her. He didn't need to. He turned away from the ruined family, his boots stepping right past the broken silver on the floor, and stopped in front of me. The entire church was dead silent, save for the muffled sobs of the billionaire who had tried to break me. Every single person in those pews was staring at me now, not with laughter, not with mockery, but with absolute, terrifying respect. They knew that a single word from me could decide who fell next. Giovanni extended his arm toward me, his palm open, waiting. "The circus is over, Selena," he said softly, a rare, genuine smile touching the corner of his lips. "Your father's legacy is restored, and the people who tried to make you feel small are currently begging at your feet. Are you ready to leave this place behind and start your real life?" I looked down at Hugo, weeping on the floor, and then at the room full of elite hypocrites who had laughed at my pain. For the first time in a year, the suffocating weight in my chest lifted. I stood perfectly straight, my shoulders back, realizing that my worth had never been dictated by their cruel metrics. I placed my hand firmly in Giovanni's. "Let's go," I said, my voice clear and steady. As we turned and walked down the long, velvet-lined center aisle, the crowd parted like the Red Sea. The very same people who had pointed and mocked minutes ago scrambled backward into their pews, bowing their heads, terrified to even meet my gaze. Giovanni kept his arm locked firmly with mine, escorting me through the grand, open double doors of the cathedral. We stepped through the threshold, leaving the darkness of the church behind, and walked directly into the brilliant, blinding daylight of a completely new kingdom. The ultimate victory of self-worth over systemic cruelty is fully realized, leaving the audience with a deep sense of emotional justice. The power dynamic has been completely inverted, and the narrative transitions seamlessly into community engagement. True beauty and power can never be measured by the small minds of those who use cruelty to hide their own weakness. Selena walked into that church, a victim of high society malice, but she walked out by the side of a man who saw her true worth, leaving her abusers entirely ruined in the dust of their own arrogance. If you believe that true dignity can never be crushed by the laughter of fools, hit that like button right now, subscribe to the channel, and turn on all notifications so you never miss the next high-stakes story of ultimate vindication. Leave a comment down below answering this question. If you were in Selena's shoes, would you have shown mercy to Hugo and his mother after they lost everything, or would you have let them burn completely? Let me know your thoughts. I read and reply to the best comments.